Hi, this is Dr. John Grazel, and this video focuses on the role of NGOs in philanthropy and international development. By NGOs, I mean organizations that supposedly exist for a purpose other than making money and are not attached to government but private parties. They're non-governmental organizations. And by philanthropy, I mean the act by which people give money basically to serve a good purpose, a charitable purpose. And obviously these overlap, but they're not exactly the same. What's important to understand is, in fact, the different forms they take are even greater. I mean, you have specific groups called NGOs. Then you have things like individual philanthropies. Then you have big foundations that have been established. So there are many different types of them. But they are not only different in terms of their organizational structure type, but what their purpose is for. Some of these are directly related to service. They exist to provide a service, to deal with helping children who have bad eyesight. Some of these are what we call advocacy groups. They particularly have an agenda that they want to advocate to get like global warming, universal education. Some of them are actually umbrella groups. They actually exist to help other non-governmental groups and non-profit groups to exist. And then, of course, when we look at these groups and when we look at philanthropy as well, there also is a qualitative difference between groups that are very large in size or very well endowed in terms of money, and those that are smaller and have much more limited funds and in some cases represent a particular individual rather than a group. And we'll see that last one, group versus individual, can be particularly important. Now, why are they popular? It's obviously the sense that they do serve very useful purposes. Creating a non-government organization is a way of a group of people forming together to create an opportunity to work together through a mechanism that's recognized now within most of the world societies, and gives them a role, gives them an identity, empowers them to act. Philanthropy is particularly useful in terms of individuals who may not want to actually engage in organizationally with another group of people, but want to contribute as individuals. All of these exist on at least three different levels that have comparative strengths and weaknesses: local, national, and international. So let's just take an example. A local group probably is particularly good at knowing what the local problems are. They are probably not the strongest in terms of expertise and breadth. A national group, like a national NGO, is stronger probably in capacities to deal with things, but it not only can be less in touch with the local group, but can be actually seen by local groups as an outside party, somebody who is coming between them and others rather than their own representative. And international groups are particularly good in terms of mobilizing resources and sustaining themselves, things like the International Red Cross and such, but they are the least attuned to immediate circumstances and the most dependent in many cases on having national and local partners. And many of them have had many different successes. I mean, we all know they're NGOs: World Wildlife Fund, Heifer International, CARE, Smile Train, many different types of NGOs that serve many different purposes. And there are many different types of philanthropy that serve many different purposes. The Rockefeller Foundations, the Ford Foundation, small family foundations that help build a particular school somewhere. So there are a lot of key successes. However, at the same time, there have been a lot of pitfalls. Now, what are some of these pitfalls? Well, among the NGO community, a lot of the pitfalls have to do with the fact that there's such a diversity and in many cases such a commitment that they actually could compete with each other. They could compete with each other for the same purpose. in the same area, but they also can compete with each other by having different agendas. So where you see one of the most dramatic competitions is different agendas on what makes good schooling, when in fact there have been dozens of examples of alternative good ways of getting schooling out to those who need it. But in many cases, you get people constantly competing about which one is best rather than mobilizing to see that at least one of the good ones actually expands to meet the need. With philanthropy, the situation can be a little bit different. What's particularly a pitfall of philanthropy is that tends to be tied to the person and therefore the ego of the person giving them. And that means two things. In one case, the mentality and beliefs of that person get automatically transferred into what is good to do, rather than having a process that really experiments, learns, reflects, and grows. And the second thing is that the ego itself replaces the philanthropy. The person behind it almost becomes more important than the purpose of the philanthropic activity itself. And this can truly distort things because in many cases we've seen, for instance, that there's been a presumption because so much philanthropy comes from people who make money out of business that automatically the business way of doing things is the best way of doing things. So because I made my money out of business, therefore running education as a business is the solution. Not necessarily true of that. I made my money out of technology, therefore technology is the best solution for a health problem. Not necessarily so. And then when the ego itself comes in, and we see this particularly in the case of celebrityhood, then the celebrity becomes the determinant of what the agenda is. People ascribe to the agenda because of the celebrity. And that can very often totally distort the focus of the activity and actually prevent people from really assessing the most effective of activity. So what's the answer? It's not to do away with these. These all have a very important role to play, including the celebrity issue, when celebrities truly work with others to use their celebrityhood for group purposes, not necessarily for just what they think is the most normal purpose. And that means building partnerships with others. So you work together, not alone. Getting actually together in alliances that have more enduring presence, and actually building coalitions so that you're actually able to move forward on a larger scale, even a global scale, and begin to affect not only practice but policy. And the bottom line is that the way to do this is not only to look at this as dividing up the work. The way to do this is to begin to say, look, some of us may be interested in health, some of us may be interested in agriculture, but among the things that can bring us together is not only our specific interests, but the purpose and principles behind our drive. Because not in governmental organizations and philanthropy is purpose and principle driven when it works as its best. And if people began looking and saying, what are the principles? So, for instance, human security, meeting basic needs. Do we have principles and purposes to which our particular interest is just part, would better allow them to come together, not only in partnerships for work, but actually alliances and coalitions to advance that larger purpose. And how to do that basically means put down the ego, whoever you are. Don't have a rigid agenda. Have a focused agenda, but be flexible. Don't let money alone drive the agenda. Engage in dialogue with others to really not only see what they're doing, but again, to always rethink what you're doing. Don't forget that secret formula that works. Make sure that you're partners in principle and purpose. And then most of all, it's service to others that's really at the key and the heart of the NGO movement and of true philanthropy.